What's up, guys? My name is Jonathan Thorpe. I'm a commercial photographer and director from Washington, D.C. Today, I'm going to show you how to use practical lighting effects in your video work. One of the most difficult things in video work is the post-processing. You know, it's not like Photoshop where I can go in and start clone stamping things out. You really got to nail a lot of this stuff in camera. And if you know your lighting well enough and you can accomplish these practical lighting effects in camera, it's going to save so much time in the post-processing world. Outside of just time consuming and cost, it takes a very powerful computer to do these type of effects that we're doing today. And it's gonna just bog down when you start trying to render this type of footage. So by doing it all in camera, you're saving yourself so much time, so many resources that you can just spend more time shooting and less time at your desk. That being said, let's get into 3 scenarios that I think are some of the trickier ones to kind of pull off in post-processing. And let's show you how to do those all in camera so you go into your post-processing with a beautiful, ready to go file. So let's get started. For this scene, we want to kind of simulate almost like a paparazzi kind of actor walking the red carpet, but our actor's going to be a little annoyed by, he's just kind of putting his hands up, doesn't really want the attention, but you know, actors get this type of attention. So to pull this off, we're actually going to be using some of the in-lighting effects, the effects that the L60s have in there. And there's multiple effects you can choose from. There's a fire, there's an old like TV kind of pulse. We're going to be using the paparazzi feature and the lightning feature because these give big hits of light at different kind of frequencies. So it's going to really mimic that those camera flashes that the paparazzi would be using as we go through our scene. So we'll start with our key light, which is going to be an L60B through the rapid box switch lantern boomed overhead. This is just to give us an ambient exposure. Right now, there's no effects applied to it. When we start filming, we're going to go and turn this to the fire setting. So it's going to give you a little bit of a pulse of light just to kind of keep the shot interesting and not just a flat, kind of just boring kind of ambient exposure. We'll kind of walk over here. We're using the Westcott app as well to control all of our lights. Each one of these lights is in its own group, so we can control each light independently. This we just have labeled as my left flash, and this is going to be using the lightning setting. There we go. And you see it starts doing that flash for us. So that's going to simulate kind of a fill flash into a camera flash if a paparazzi was using that. Back here, we just have 2 L60Bs as well. These aren't going to really simulate any type of camera flash. These are actually going to just be some type of ambient light that would be behind them. We've gone ahead and turned the temperature way warm on these. So in the camera, they're going to be almost kind of like an orange light. These are also going to be pulsing as well. And we have both of these in their own group. So these are going to be controlled simultaneously by them with each other. We'll fire those up. These are all at pretty low power too. These are both at 7%, or this one's at 7%, this is at 11%. I think that one is at 9%. So everything's not super intense. We're getting just enough exposure on him that we don't want to blow out any skin tones. We want to keep these flashes so that they're actually a part of the shoot, not just like overpowering everything. We'll come over here. We'll turn on our right flash. And this is not as intense of a pulse on this one. We didn't want everything to be completely the same. So that would kind of lend it to be, you'd feel like it's kind of a fake setup. So we want things to be kind of bouncing off each other in a different type of way. Nothing that's too simultaneous, just variances of light bursting all over the place. So all that is ready to go. We'll go back to our key light, and I'm going to turn on there the effects for the key. And you'll see that the lantern kind of starts pulsing a little bit. That's just going to give us a little bit more of that atmosphere that we're looking for. And that should be our full light setup. So now we would kind of truck our camera in, turn off the rest of the ambient lights, and take a look at our shot. So we're shooting this scene on the Fuji X-H2S. This has kind of been my cinema go-to rig now for a few months. Our lens on this is going to be a Tamron 45 1.8, shooting at kind of a medium focal length because we're going to have the camera kind of close to him, moving around and kind of rotating and jumping around. We want this to feel very chaotic. So as long as the camera keeps moving, we have all these flashes going on, he's going to be reacting to everything. It'll all kind of work really well together. We are also shooting with 2 filters on the front of this lens. We have an ND, a variable ND filter, so we can control our exposure. I want to keep my aperture at f2. My ISO is going to be at 640, which is the minimal ISO you can shoot in log on this camera. And underneath that ND filter is actually called a half pro mist filter. That's underneath that. That's going to help these lights kind of bloom to camera and give a very, very cinematic appeal. Almost as if you kind of sprayed haze throughout the whole set. So all these lights, when they come into the lens, you're going to see some flares, maybe some little anamorphic style flares. A lot of just cool effects so that we can get all this stuff done in camera and save all this other time in post. And you don't have to be so locked in. You can move a little bit out of this. Think about like a 6-inch square around you.
Okay, but still staying in this.
Yeah, totally. If you want to kind of like do one of these little duck downs, that's fine. I'll just try to track with you as best as I can. So as we were filming, to add some more realism to it, we had a couple of assistants hold each one of the L60Bs over here, like they would a camera, and try to kind of find his face as they would if they were really taking his picture like a real paparazzi. By doing that, just adds a little bit more realism, a little bit more dimensionality to it, because every time our actor would move away from the light, we had another person there to kind of put that light back in his face. So it kind of added to that chaos and added to the whole vibe of like really trying to avoid paparazzi as a celebrity.
Stronger than the people we love.
So for this setup, we wanted to mimic like an outdoor kind of camping wilderness scene. We're going to do this by relying on the L60B's fire effect. And what the fire effect does, it kind of sends out a pulse of light that kind of intensifies and gets a little bit softer and mimics what a fire would look like in real time. So you can see we've built a little bit of a set. We have the X-Drop Pro here with a black backdrop and a black sweep. And you see we have 3 lights. We're going to go through each light kind of one by one and discuss why we're using them and how we're using them. Our first light we're going to talk about is this backlight. This is an L60B with a blue gel. Now what this light's going to do is give us that moonlight, that kind of cold look that we get at night. I'm going ahead and using the Westcott app again to turn all these lights on and go through my process. So that light's going to come from behind and just hit our actor here in the back of the shoulder. We're going to get a little bit of a spill on the front of his face. I'm okay with that. I don't need to be super directional with it. It's moonlight. It's going to be a giant light when you're outside during at nighttime anyways. So a little bit of that falling forward is okay. Our next light we're going to kick on will be our fire. We'll go down here. And you see we're running this off of a battery. This is 2 of the NPF batteries. We have this on the handle and we're having to set up where the fire would be in our shot. And that's the beauty about using batteries with this, is you can get that light a little bit lower and really simulate where the fire is going to be. And you can see it's already doing its pulsing on our actor here to simulate what that fire would look like in real time. Our last light will be our lantern overhead. And all this is doing is giving me just a little bit more fill on the shoulders and the dark areas it's going to be there. We'll turn that on. And it doesn't do a ton, but when I'm filming, it's going to help fill in some of those shadows to keep my shots very, very noiseless and very, very clean and easy. It's easy to get into a scene like this and just put the lights you think you need, but you do need something out there to help fill in those shadows a little bit to get the cleanest image you can get, especially if you're shooting video and not photo. You have very limited resources when it comes to cleaning up an image and video, so you really got to get everything in camera right as much as you possibly can. We've gone ahead and add some other elements. Just some fake trees we have here in the studio. He's sitting on a log to kind of help sell this whole environment. And again, we're using the black backdrop so we don't see any of the studio behind him, and it just goes to dark in the scene. All right, so the shot's looking great. But what I want to do is really kind of intensify that fire a little bit more and really kind of hit it home and make it a little bit more believable. So what I'm going to do is have Olivia come in. Olivia just has a feather with her. What she's going to do is kind of hold that in front of the light a little bit, not fully in front so we block all of it, but just a little bit so we get a little bit of this like dabble in the light, and that's going to help kind of even enhance that fire on him even a little bit more. So go ahead and hold that. Like I said, just keep these little bits, the ones in front of it. There we go. And by doing that, again, it makes the light even that more sporadic on our actor, and it really kind of sells the fire environment, right? Because it's never going to be super uniform necessarily. So if we can dabble that light just a bit more with the feather here or anything, it could be any type of material, it's just going to help make the shot a little bit more believable. So when filming anything narrative, it's important to kind of also slow down and really take in as many of the elements of that shoot as you possibly can. I think with photographers in general, we always have this mentality of like, get one hero image and call it a day. But when it comes to video, you really got to take in all the elements, all the little details to help sell that narrative. So we've already got our wide shot. What I want to do is go back and film some tights of his face, eyes, maybe some of his hands that kind of show some anxiety or some nervousness in it. Show him breaking those sticks. When we put this whole piece together, we have a nice little, maybe minute and a half narrative that really tells the whole story. Okay, for this scene, we're trying to mimic at home at night, scary movie on, you hear any sound outside, you think it's a monster coming to get you. So we have our fake living room scene that we've kind of constructed here. If you notice, we have a softbox down low. We're going to talk about that in just a second, why that's there and what it's doing. The first light we're going to bring up will be our simulated kind of window light, and that's going to be a very cool light coming in from the right there. So that light should be a little bit more blue in tone because that's going to be simulating that light that'll be coming in through a window, maybe in a kitchen or nearby in the living room. Our next light we're going to bring up will be the lantern overhead. Now this light is going to be a much warmer tone because in an interior of a house, typically like your lamps and everything else are going to have that very warm tone to them. So we're trying to play off of that moonlight a little bit just to kind of give the shot a little bit more color and a little bit more dimensionality. And going into our final light, which is our softbox down here on the ground, this is an L60B, and we're using the TV effect inside of it. That effect is going to kind of flicker as if you're watching television and things are happening on TV. It's going to flicker on the face and just give it a little bit more of that realism. We're using the softbox because we want it to feel like a television, and we want the light to be soft enough that's coming out of a large source like it would out of a television. So we'll go ahead and turn that light on, and you can see how it's kind of giving that little flicker effect here on our actor. So it kind of helps to sell that narrative a little bit more. We'll be filming most of this from the television's perspective and getting his reaction to the TV. That means we're going to shoot over the TV. We're going to shoot from the TV perspective as well, and some side shots and some shots in the popcorn in the bowl to kind of just help sell this narrative and get all of our elements to create a little kind of fun story. We don't want this camera to be super tied down. We want there to be a little bit of jitter in it because it kind of helps emphasize this kind of tense and anxiety-driven moment of the scary movie. All right, he's doing a good job there. Give me a little bit of a scared scene, but just don't lose our popcorn. There we are. Yep, there we go, looking away. Pull the blanket up a little bit too. We're gonna do a little bit of a hide behind the blankety thing. Excellent. So we'll take that as our wide. We're gonna move into a little bit of a tighter shot. We're gonna shoot kind of across the face here. These are just those elements that you use to break up those really long narrative shots. So we have our side here. And when we're shooting this tight to his face, especially from a side angle, we're seeing the effect of that television even more because we have that blue light that's coming in from behind, and this light is disrupting that blue light. So we see the frequency of the flutter even more. Very good. So there you have it. As you can see, you can pull off a lot of cool effects with these L60Bs. And if you notice, we use that lantern pretty much across all of our scenarios. To me, the lantern is one of the most effective tools in your video production because it lets you set the ambient exposure for the room however you want. You don't have to rely on just an overhead light that's already provided there. You can change the temperature of it to kind of, balance out the room ambient from a temperature standpoint. But that lantern is really a really effective tool that I can't recommend enough to anyone out there in the video production world. Thank you guys so much for checking these out, and we'll see you again next time.